Welcome to another installment of MLB Network's 20 Greatest Games. We've reached number 15 on the countdown. It comes from the first year of the wild card, and it's one of the wildest postseason games in recent memory.
Absolutely. And, Lou, you managed more than 3,500 Major League games. I imagine this one has got to be near the top of your personal list.
No question. Fun-filled, pressure-packed. Kingdom's a wild place to start with.
Here we go with Lou Piniella and game number 15 on the countdown. Okay, for game number 15 on the countdown, we turn back the clock 16 years. It's October of 1995. We're joined by Lou Piniella, who managed the Seattle Mariners, and David Cone, who began the season with the Blue Jays, traded mid-year to the Yankees, helped them get the wild card, get to the playoffs, and starts the game we're about to see, which is Game 5 of the Division Series. This is the first year, Tom, that the wild card was in effect. It was supposed to be there for '94, but of course the strike blew out the postseason. Worth noting that the Yankees led by 6.5 at the time of the strike over the Orioles in the American League East. But to this point, the Yankees, who we think of as postseason perennials, had not been in the postseason since 1981.
It's been a long time, and what's interesting, too, Bob, is both these teams had to make a charge down the stretch just to get in. In fact, both teams, the Mariners and the Yankees, were under 500 in August. So we're looking at two very hot teams. And I know, Lou, you're also playing for something bigger. You're trying to keep baseball in Seattle because there's rumors about leaving for Florida, for Tampa. And there's a referendum on the table to try to keep the team in Seattle. I'm not sure if you are aware of that as a manager, but there's a lot in play, big picture.
No, I was aware of it. That game there, I think, built the new stadium.
And yet earlier that season, coming off the strike and with the Mariners struggling, there were small crowds. There were crowds of under 10,000 at some games, and that referendum had failed to tack something onto a sales tax, and they would have used the funds to build the new stadium. So at this point, people are thinking the Mariners are out of town, and they make their run, and the state legislature says, hold on, wait a minute, we can come up with another package, and they did.
I remember my first year there. We had been there in town for about 2 weeks, and myself and the coaches went to a little diner and had some breakfast. And the guy says, I'm a great Mariners fan. When does your season start? I said, we've been playing 2 weeks already. They didn't even know we were in town. But '95 changed all that.
Well, you guys were under 500, actually a game over on August 15th, 51-50, 12.5 back of the Angels. You finished 28-16. The Angels falter. You tie them. 1-game tiebreaker at the Kingdom. You got Randy Johnson, and you win the game.
Well, you know what's amazing is my message to the team after the All-Star break was I played on a Yankee team in 1978 that was 14 games behind the Red Sox, and we came back and won. So let's not give up on the season. And, you know, truthfully, our whole focus that year, Bob, was the wild card. We didn't figure that we would be in the divisional race, but California really struggled down the stretch, and they gave us an opportunity. But we were entirely focused on the wild card.
You guys grabbed the wild card by going 25-6 in September and coming back from sub-500 to get to the postseason.
Yeah, well, there was a sense of urgency, a sense of desperation on that team. Also, Don Mattingly. Everybody wanted to get Mattingly to the playoffs. He had never made the playoffs, obviously, in his whole Yankee career, and to be able to do that was sort of our rallying cry.
Something else that's interesting here, the matchups in the playoffs were predetermined. Record had nothing to do with it. So Cleveland had gone 144 because the season started late because the strike still hadn't been settled. Cleveland had the best record in all of baseball, yet they would play the winners of the American League East, the Red Sox. The Yankees were the wild card, but they got the first 2 games at home with the next 3. It wasn't 2-2-1. The next 3 scheduled for Seattle.
Right, and they win those first 2 games at home. So you go to Seattle, David, knowing you just need 1 more win. Tough place to play, I know, but 1 more win. You had a lead in Game 4, lost the game. You had a big lead in Game 4. Game 3, you also had a lead, lost that game. So you get to Game 5, you said desperation down the stretch. I imagine there had to be some going into Game 5.
Incredible pressure on that Yankee team. You know, obviously with George Steinbrenner as your owner, you could feel him in the clubhouse when he walked in. And when it was 2-2 and we went into Game 5, he looked me up and down and said, "You better be ready to pitch." And I said, "I will be," and I thought I was, but still waiting for my commission check for that Kingdome. Getting blown up at the new Safeco Field. I think I'm a big part of that.
We're going to get you to Game 5 and your starting assignment in a second. But it's worth noting these first 2 games at Yankee Stadium. David, you won Game 1, had to throw 135 pitches to do it, which comes into play when they bring you back for Game 5. Game 2 was just completely wild. 15 innings, lead changes. Eventually, Leyritz wins it with a homer. I mean, it's already shaping up as an incredible series, even though it's 2-0. They go back to Seattle. Randy Johnson wins Game 3. The Yankees had a 5-0 lead in Game 4, but you guys came back to win that, and that sets the table for Game 5. Let's take a look at the lineups. Buck Showalter managed the Yankees. He goes with Deion James, which was kind of a surprise. You know, some of the names that we associate with the Yankee dynasty that would soon take shape are not yet there. In fact, most of them aren't yet there.
Well, he had Darryl Strawberry on the bench, but I guess he didn't really trust him in the outfield too much. Darryl crushed right-handed pitching, but he stuck with Deion James.
Let's look at Lou Piniella's lineup for the Mariners. Alex Rodriguez is in uniform. He would not become a starter for a while yet. He gets into the game later on. You got Vince Coleman at the top, Joey Cora, Ken Griffey Jr., who just had a fabulous series, Edgar Martinez, who in Game 4 had 2 home runs and 7 RBIs, Tino Martinez, who soon enough would become a Yankee, Buhner, Soho, Wilson, and Blowers at the bottom.
You know, the key to that lineup, Lou, and I thought, you know, Ken Griffey Jr. jumps out at me. I'm a right-handed pitcher. He's a left-handed batter. But Edgar Martinez is just as good against right-handed pitching, so there's no break there. I couldn't pitch around Griffey Jr. to get to Edgar. I think Griffey ends up hitting 4 home runs or 3 home runs off of me personally in the series, and a few more off of other pitchers as well.
Here is the pitching pairing. Andy Benes, who, like David, had started the season with another team. He started with the Padres and then came over. He was 11-9, and his ERA was almost 5. David Cohn had gone 18-8, ERA 3.5. Now, David, you'd pitched in a lot of big games with Toronto, with the Mets earlier in your career. You'd won a Cy Young Award with Kansas City, a 2-time 20-game winner. So in that respect, you had an edge.
I did have an edge, but I'd never pitched a closeout game or, you know, a do-or-die type game. You know, you win, you go on, you lose, you're done. So that was really my first experience in that type of a start. And let me tell you, the pressure is enormous when you know it's one and done. The last game, the 7th game of any sports series, it is what it is. It is unbelievably pressure-packed.
Okay, so here we go. Top of the first. Andy Benes is on the mound, facing Wade Boggs, the leadoff man. The game was on ABC. Brent Musburger and Jim Cott with the call.
Noise of the crowd is going to pump him up. That'll only help that fastball. Wade Boggs steps in to lead it off.
And Lou, what kind of trust do you have in Benes at this point? I know Bob mentioned you picked him up in July. Pitched well for you. Not great, a lot of run support, but giving him the ball in this situation.
He pitched very well in the Kingdome. You know, if you've got a good fastball in that ballpark, with the air conditioning, the fact that it's cool, the mound's a little higher than what you think, elevation-wise. I thought that if he got his fastball over the plate, if he didn't fall behind and could use his breaking ball at times to strike out hitters, that he would pitch well. And he did. He did his job.
So Bernie Williams, who had homered from both sides of the plate in Game 3, goes down swinging. Benes then retired Paul O'Neill on a flyout, so a strong top of the first for him. And David, here you go in the bottom of the first.
Yes, feeling the pressure. You know, I think I have Billy Connor's jersey on, Lou. That's the old pitching coach who got fired by George halfway through the season. But you know, there's Griffey Jr. You know, when I'm thinking about Griffey Jr., you got to tie him up inside. And I just could not, the whole series, get the ball consistently in on him. Kept drifting out over the plate. I get away with a pitch right here. As you see, it's out over the plate. He gets a good swing, but he's just a little late and popped up.
A little late on it.
But the rest of the series, I just could not get him out.
Well, Junior, pretty good hitter. In fact, that year he had just a tremendous year. And in the playoffs, he was exceptional. He was on fire.
So you had gotten Coleman, Cora, and then Griffey for a 1-2-3 first. Benes gets through the top of the second without incident, and now Edgar Martinez starts it against you in the bottom half.
And just the way you want to face him, with nobody on, leading off an inning. But Edgar is the best right-handed hitter I've ever faced. And, you know, I was a right-handed pitcher that really dominated right-handed hitters. But you see Edgar, he could get the ball in, he could shorten up his swing and get in. A pitch like that, He could keep his hands back and still fillet it up the middle. You know, he covered both sides of the plate so well. Off-speed fastballs as well.
There was no way to pitch him.
Right.
I was with him for 8 or 9, 10 years over there, and I couldn't tell you how to pitch him. And you're right, he made adjustments.
Double dose of Martinez here. Dave Niehaus at the mic for Seattle. Tino steps in.
As Cone goes to his stretch. And the right-hander's pitch, Edgar goes, and it swung on a line into left field for a base hit, but hit so sharply, Edgar can only go to second base.
You got to pitch him in, and I never really established a fastball in the whole series.
So now you got to deal with Buhner. 2 on, nobody out.
And this place is already rocking, David. I mean, early in the season, there was no duller place than the Kingdome. Late in the season, it became a huge home field advantage for them.
It really was. It was the loudest place I've ever pitched in. And I pitched in the Metrodome, too, when, back in the 80s, the Herbeck and Puckett era. This was the loudest place I ever pitched.
Louder than the Metrodome.
Louder than the Metrodome.
Wow.
That game, I have no question in my mind about it. Seattle was just, they were so hungry for this game. I mean, all the external things going around, whether the Kingdome, whether Seattle's going to stay in Seattle, whether they're going to get a new ballpark. I mean, everybody seemed to understand it. The refuse to lose campaign in that ballpark. The loudest, most aggressive fans I've ever been around for one game.
You get Buhner swinging. Soon enough, A-Rod's going to be the Mariners' shortstop. But right now, it's Luis Sojo.
You see, Mike Stanley's behind the plate, and Mike was a veteran guy. He was sort of a guy that wasn't a catcher by trade, more of a first baseman, more of a hitter, but he did a great job for me behind the plate. I'm a tough guy to catch. I throw everything, a lot of dirt balls, a lot of high counts, a lot of 3-2 counts. You can see here, I'm going to beat him up right here. This is my patent little slider in the dirt, and you see a catcher do that quite often when I'm pitching.
But, David, it seems like early in this game, you have to tap the reservoir because you need strikeouts in this situation.
Yeah, that's it. That's the style I was, and that's going back to my Met days. I always felt, you see high fastball to Louis. Louis was always a free swinger, so if you can get it up and out, not too high, but just up above the strike zone, you can get him to chase there, and that was a big pitch. But I always, going back to my Mets days, was trained to be a fly ball, strikeout type pitcher, and that's going back to Davey Johnson and the Mets.
The baseball paths take twists and turns. In a few years, Luis Sojo will be a key Yankee. He sits down now, and Dan Wilson at the plate.
Here comes the 1-2 pitch to Dan Wilson on the way now from the veteran right-hander, and the fastball swing and a miss. And he comes back and strikes out Buhner, Sojo, and Wilson.
If I can get my off-speed pitches that look like strikes and go down over the heart of the plate, I'm going to get some swings and misses.
Well, when you have a good fastball like you had, the illusion of the strike gets you the strikeouts. And that's the secret, keeping the ball over the cylinder.
That's it.
And hitters will chase. I know, I chased a few in my career.
Tom's point is a really good one, though, because you'd thrown 135 pitches back in Game 1, and now, early in this game, you're throwing stressful pitches.
And don't forget, too, Bob, that, not to break in, but this was a strike-shortened season. They really didn't have much of a spring training to start out with. Then he goes out and leads the league in innings pitched. So I'd imagine, David, at this point, I don't know if you're gassed, but you're probably feeling it a little bit.
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling it. I was part of the union, the Players Association. I was in Washington all winter. I did not pick up a ball until Judge Sotomayor ended the strike with her decision. 3 weeks of spring training, right down to this game. I was completely exhausted.
And our strategy with David on the mound, we knew he was going to be tough, and he was, but we wanted to be selective. We wanted him to throw a lot of pitches and get that pitch count up early in the ball game, and it worked.
So, Game 5, Andy Benes, David Cone, scoreless through 2. When we come back, an unlikely source provides the game's first blow. This is MLB's 20 greatest games. Back with Tom Verducci, David Cone, and Lou Piniella as we continue to review game number 15 on the list. It's Game 5 of the Division Series in '95 between Lou's Mariners and David's Yankees. The Yanks went out in order in the top of the third. We move now in a scoreless game to the bottom half. 2 outs, nobody on. Joey Cora at the plate. Rick Riz has the call on the Mariners radio broadcast.
Joey 0 for 1. He is flying out to center fielder Bernie Williams. In the first inning. Still close at third is Wade Boggs. Fastball swing and a fly ball deep to right field. O'Neill going back. Goodbye, baseball.
I'll tell you this about Joey. If he got one to his liking, he'd try to turn on it. He hit a few during the course of the season. But you're right. Joey was more of a get-on-base type guy, a single to left field. But at times he had a little pop. And that time he surprised all of us.
Only rarely. That was his 8th career home run in more than 2,000 big league at-bats.
And only 3 during the season. So, David, we talked about trying to pitch to that middle of the order, and he jumped you right there.
He really did. And, with 2 outs, I'm thinking, that's a perfect time for him to try to get on base, extend the inning, and just
Try to steal a base,
Exactly.
whatever, yes.
Get me over fastball, belt high, right down the middle, nothing on it, and it's gone. And that stunned me a little bit. Even though I was lucky I had 2 outs right there because, I had
And
one
it
more
got the
out.
fans right back
Yes.
into the ball game because you had quieted them pretty good, especially after striking out those 3 hitters with the bases loaded in the 2nd inning.
So here it is. That's Jack McDowell, by the way, on the bench. He'll figure later, and he'll be more engaged than he is at that moment, yawning, down 1-0 as Bernie Williams walks to start the top of the 4th.
Yeah, little did he know, right there, Jack McDowell, you're going to be in this game.
But what a tough lineup the Yankees threw at you. The switch hitters, the left-hand hitters with O'Neill.
O'Neill hoping to sting the Mariners again. He does. Look out. O'Neill's got one out of here. Put it on the scoreboard, and the Yankees bounce ahead on O'Neill's home run.
Well, I had Paul in Cincinnati. I knew he could hit, and he was quick inside. Here he gets a nice fastball that Bennis is trying to get in on his hands, and he shortens up his swing. And in the Kingdome, you don't have to hit it all that far to hit it out. And he got enough of it and drove it into the seats.
Well, Lou, you had a reputation for your pitchers buzzing Paul O'Neill every time you saw him.
I get blamed for that, but truthfully, that's not the case. I didn't believe in that. I really didn't. But a few of the pitchers that pitched for me with the Reds knew Paul, and you're right. If you got him off the plate a little bit, he gave at times, and at times that was a strategy, but it certainly didn't work.
So Joey Cora had stunned you. You were down 1-0, but only briefly. O'Neill's 2-run homer gives you the lead.
It does. Once I get out of that inning, okay, I'm okay. We've got the lead back. O'Neill goes deep, hits a bomb. I've got to regroup. I'm feeling pretty good about it. Even though I'd thrown a lot of pitches at this point, as Lou said, that was their battle plan to get my pitches up, and my pitch count was not in good shape, even though we had the lead right there.
So after the O'Neill homer off Bennis, David has a 1-run lead to work with, but that's not going to last that much longer. This is game number 15 on the list of MLB's 20 greatest games of the last half-century. Back with number 15 on the list. Pick up the action now. Bottom of the 4th, 2-1 Yankees, 1 out, nobody on. David Cone against Tino Martinez. Here's the late Dave Niehaus on the Mariners radio broadcast.
2-2 on Tino. And the 2-2 pitch on the way to him now. Fastball swung on, lined into the gap in left center field. That's going to get down.
Once again, Lou, out over the plate. Didn't really establish into any of the left-handed hitters the whole series, and in retrospect, I see it now even more so, and that's where Tino likes it. Even though that was off speed and it was down and away, he could keep his hands back and still serve it in the gap, and now I'm in trouble.
Tino was a good hitter, really was. He could hit the ball for some power. He hit the ball in the gap, like you mentioned there, and you're right. When Tino was hot, he kept his hands back really well and used his hands.
Whoops.
I'm a tough guy to catch, Bob. I just beat up every catcher in my career. Poor Mike Stanley. When I look at some of these pitches I throw, I could uncork some wild ones.
Well, you had that really, really tight breaking ball. And you get a lot of strikeouts with that tight breaking ball, but you do get some balls that get by the catchers also.
So Tino advances to 3rd, and Buhner's at-bat continues.
Here comes a 3-1 to Jay Buhner now, and the fastball swung on and lined into left center field for a base hit, so Tino's going to score, and we are even at 2-2.
3-1 fastball. In retrospect, when I look at that, with first base open, was a big mistake in that situation, especially Buhner sitting on fastball and a fastball count. Should have thrown a slider.
Yeah, you sawed him off, though, but somehow he had enough strength to get it over the infield.
I thought Buhner had a good series. He had a couple of really key at-bats. This is one of them, and then late in the 8th inning, we'll come up to that later, but Buhner really had some unsung great at-bats in the series.
After Luis Sojo lines out, it's Dan Wilson at the plate.
And now the Cone stretch, and the 3-1 pitch to Dan Wilson on the way now, and it swung on and lined into center field, and Blowers will get that chance to step up to the dish.
So now if Blowers can get a hit, the Mariners will be back on top. Breaking ball hit to short, and here's Fernandez, who was always so smooth. You forget how good he was at shortstop with the Blue Jays. Made several good plays in this game. Helps you get out of the inning with the score no worse than tied.
You know, yeah, at this point, I feel pretty lucky to get out of that inning because on the turf, that ground ball up the middle, even though it's a decent slider, Fernandez had great range, covered that. That could have easily got up the middle, and who knows what happens from there.
And as you saw, David, some of the pitches in that inning elevated. The pitch to Martinez, the pitch to Buhner, the pitch to Wilson. They're all probably a little higher than you wanted them.
Yeah, that's the first sign of fatigue. When you see a pitcher who's trying to throw fastballs and trying to hit spots and your arm drops a little bit, the pitches elevate, they drift out over the middle of the plate. I had some early signs in this game that showed that I was going to wear down later.
So through 4, Game 5 is tied at 2. Neither team would score in the 5th. And up next, it's the last hit of Don Mattingly's career, and it's a big one. You're watching MLB's 20 greatest games.
I didn't realize that.
You're about to find out.
High, and Williams again walks, which sets the table for Paul O'Neill. 2 on, back-to-back walks. Here comes Ruben Sierra, who is way overdue to do something for the Bombers. And the bases are loaded on 3 walks, and Lou Piniella now with a decision to make.
All right, as Brent Musburger said, you got a decision to make. The bases are loaded in a tie game, 1 out. Don Mattingly's coming up. You got Norm Charlton, who has already been effective in this series. You had him in Cincinnati. You got him in Seattle. Why didn't you go to him?
I should have, Bob. Looking at it in retrospect, there's no question. Norm had the good split finger. His best pitch wasn't a breaking ball, but he had good fastball. We didn't have him for long either. Our bullpen was pretty well spent, but at the same time, this was the 5th and deciding game. Probably no excuses. I should have had Charlton in the ballgame.
And Lou, managing this game, how much do you have Randy Johnson for? He was your Game 3 starter. You know you could use him. Obviously, you're not going to use him this early, but how many outs, how many innings can you get out of Randy?
We were hoping that we could bring him into a ball game in the 9th inning with a 1-run lead and let him close it out for us. We knew that the dome would go crazy. The fans would, that place there, if it was loud, it'd be the loudest it ever been.
Let's not get ahead of ourselves. We're still in the 6th. It's 2-2. The bases are loaded, as we said. Mattingly's at the plate against Bennis. Brent Musburger on the call.
The captain, Don Mattingly, with the bases loaded and 1 out here. Slaps one into left field, down into that corner. It's fair. The Yankees.
And what a great series Donnie had. I mean, his only playoff series as a Yankee, and he just led us. He had great at-bats, every at-bat, quality at-bats, and big hits.
What a great swing. I was his hitting coach in New York when he first came up to the big leagues. And I love working with him. He had the shortest takeaway of any hitter I've ever seen, probably Paul Molitor. And he had the 2 shortest. And this guy could hit the ball all over, and he could hit the ball for a lot of power. And Mattingly didn't actually pull that ball. He just went with it. But that's good hitting with the bases loaded.
Bad break for the Yanks, though. Ground rule double. Sierra probably would have scored from first. They had to stop him at 3rd. They get 2 runs. Now Deion James is going to be walked intentionally to load him up again.
You know, on the Yankee bench, we're thinking we're going to blow him out right here. We're going to blow out the game. This is our time. He's leaving Bennis in the game. Bennis maybe gets a fastball up. Mike Stanley's a great hitter, got some pop. I'm thinking, you know, home run right here, and we're going to win this thing. We're going to blow him out.
And that was the key to the ball game for us. We were able to get out of this inning with no more damage, and it gave us a chance with the hitting that we had to mount a comeback. Give Bennis some credit. He got 2 big outs for us.
That's
at
a
the
huge
right
one
time.
right there. On a pop out, bases loaded, less than 2 outs. Did his job.
So Stanley's retired. That'll leave it up to Tony Fernandez. And you're still sticking with Bennis.
Look, we like the idea of throwing as much power as we could against New York. They had some experienced hitters over there that knew the strike zone very well, that would make pitchers throw pitches, and they were good breaking ball and off-speed hitters also. So we like the idea of power if we could against them. And I stayed with Andy, and thank God it worked out. But I should have had him out of there against Manley. I can see that.
But he got them both out with fastballs. Yeah. Still had a good fastball.
That's what the catcher. That's a sign that I'd gotten from Danny. Danny and I would work things out where when he thought that the pitch was a little spent, or when he was losing his fastball, he'd give me a little sign, and we'd go out and make a pitching change. But Danny still had confidence in the pitcher, and when you're catcher, is good, and he's calling a good ball game, and you know he knows what he's doing. You got to give him some rope, too, and let him help you with decisions.
Okay, let's go to the bottom of the sixth. It's 4-2 Yankees. Leading off against David Cone is Edgar Martinez, who seems to come up every other batter.
He does, and believe me, when you're on the mound facing Edgar Martinez, you just got to knuckle down. You realize that you just cannot make mistakes, and you know that's a decent pitch, a splitter down and out over the plate. Edgar just had such great hands and such great recognizing skills, and you know there's just no way to pitch him, as Lou said earlier. I mean, I tried pitching every pitch I had in my repertoire, and he was on everything.
Yeah, you would think that a pitch like that he'd go to right center field with, but he keeps his hands back and drives it by the third baseman. No, Edgar could hit. He really could.
Leadoff double. Here's the other Martinez, and he doesn't fare as well. Can't check his swing, so you got him.
That's the only way I could get the ball into lefties, is to throw a slider. You know, every time I tried to throw a fastball inside to lefties, as I said before, my arm got a little fatigued and drifted out, but that's the only way I got the ball in right there, with sliders down and into lefties.
Buhner had an RBI hit against you last time. You got him this time. Again, can't check his swing.
Yeah, another splitter down. You know, that's the key. You know, Lou and I talked about that earlier. Those split finger fastballs that look like they're right down the middle over the heart of the plate, and they dive down. You can see Buhner reads fastball the whole way, tries to hold up and can't.
And now it's the splitter and the slider that are your best friends, not the fastball.
Yeah, I'm shying away from my fastball at this point.
Warren Newsom is hitting for Soho now.
Got him. David Cone is dictating now. A 2-run lead through 6.
In the top of the 7th, Bennis was relieved by Norm Charlton, but the Yankees didn't score. Now to the bottom of the 7th, and Dan Wilson up against Dave Cone.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty good here, Lou. I've got a 2-run lead. I'm coming off of, you know, striking out the side the last inning.
3 big strikeouts, yeah. You're in a good groove.
Yeah, I'm thinking, you know, I'm going to close this game out. I'm not going to give up this lead, and I'm going to go after these guys in this inning. And you see there, even a decent fastball late in the game, and I hadn't had one the whole game. When you start to feel it late in the game as a pitcher,
you've got your second win, haven't you?
Yeah, I thought this was a big inning because you threw only 9 pitches, all out of the windup. You had so many high-stress innings in the course of this game that it seemed like this inning got you back to where you wanted to be.
Yeah, I really felt good there. Quality sliders, you see there, just it's probably the best slider I threw all night, and it is. It's just like Lou said. You get your second win, you start to see the finish line, and you've got a 2-run lead, and we're going to win this game.
Right at the knees to make Blowers your 5th consecutive strikeout. Now it's Vince Coleman at the plate.
You know, Coleman's a guy, obviously, his reputation for stealing bases. You just don't want to let him get on base, so I'm going after him. Gold Glover, Donnie Mattingly makes a great play there because Coleman hit that ball fairly well.
So through 7 in this game, the Yankees still lead by 2. Up next, the kid goes deep, a controversial decision, and 2 future stars make an appearance. We have it all when MLB's 20 Greatest Games continues with number 15 on the list.
And Lou Piniella is at it again. One of the reasons why he has Johnson up is to get this crowd very much back into the thick of things.
It's Game 5 in '95 between the Yankees and the Mariners, and was Brent Musburger right? Part of your idea here isn't just to get him ready, but just to jack the crowd up a little bit?
Well, no question. We're behind 4-2. David's in command of the ball game, and we've got to do something to keep our fans excited, give us a lift, and it worked.
Well, remember, too, that Randy Johnson pitched the tiebreaker game for you on short rest to beat the Angels to get into the postseason. He pitches Game 3 on short rest, wins that game, and now here he is with 1 day of rest. Did you have any conversations with Randy before or even during the game about how much he had and what his spot was?
Yeah, we talked to him before the ball game, and he said, Skip, I got 1 inning for you. And we felt, well, if we can take a lead into the 9th, we give the ball to Randy, and hopefully he does his job. As it was, he pitched a little longer. But even during the course of the ball game, we called down there a couple times and to make sure that he could pitch, and every time the answer was yes, just get me the ball.
So once you get him up, you're pretty committed to using him.
That's it. We didn't have the liberty of getting him up and sitting him back down. Once we got him up, we had to get him into a ball game, and we let him go about as long as he could.
All right, so with a 4-2 lead, the Yankees went quietly in the top of the 8th against Norm Charlton. To the bottom of the 8th we go. 1 out, nobody on. David Cone still on the mound. Ken Griffey Jr. at the plate. Dave Niehaus at the mic.
Jr. against David Cone so far has gone 0 for 3. The 1-0 pitch on the way to Jr. Swung on and belted. That's going to be in the upper the second deck.
Coming on the heels of 5 straight strikeouts, I've got my second win, and this just knocked me right out of the saddle. That home run, even though I've still got a 4-3 lead, I've got complete doubt in my mind about what I have left.
He almost reached the upper deck. He had 5 homers in the series, but that one was really tattooed.
Well, you can see that Stanley was sitting inside.
Yes.
And the ball drifted slightly out over the plate, and boy, Junior extended.
Yes, and that's a real red flag right here. I'm coming up on 140 pitches. That sort of arm action, you could see my arm drop. As Lou said, the ball drifts out over. Look at that swing. Oh, my goodness. That hurts to today.
Even though you said you were shaken, you got Edgar Martinez, who had given you big trouble to ground out. Now it's Tino.
Tino, and puts a really quality at bat on me and just eyeballs a splitter down the way. He can see Seattle's on to me now. They know I've lost my fastball. They know any hitters count, 3-2, 2-1, any fastball count, I'm going to throw off speed. At this point, I'm in trouble.
You know, Dave Niehaus could get pretty excited in a game in May. Imagine how excited he is now.
And the 2-1 on the way to Buhner. Swung on, line drive, base hit right center field. Bernie Williams will stop it in right center field, and the Mariners have the tying run in scoring position. Tino Martinez at second base.
This is interesting to me, David. A conference here where there's no eye contact whatsoever with your pitching coach. And I think about a year later when Joe Torre goes out in Game 3 and you had to look him in the eye to stay in the game. I didn't see any of that body language right here.
No, you could see, you know, I'm flustered. I'm really flustered, especially after that last pitch to Buhner. I thought I was going to get Buhner out. Nardi Contreras was only there half a season. We really didn't even know each other. I can tell you, I probably didn't even know his last name. I knew he was Nardi, and that was my pitching coach. So you can see there that interaction, as you said, Tom, you know, there was none.
Now, Lou, you're looking for young Alex Rodriguez, who had started the season at age 19, turned 20 during the year. He's back in the clubhouse. You want him to pinch run. Finally, he shows up.
Where was he?
Alex was getting loose. Boy, look how young and athletic he looks. What a great young player. And this was tremendous experience for Alex, sitting on our bench and watching the proceedings. He'd become a star, obviously.
So how about this? A-Rod in to run for Tino Martinez. Warming up in the bullpen is Mariano Rivera. You have no confidence left. Your body language shows it. Why didn't Showalter pull you?
I don't know. I think Buck really, at this point in his career, really trusted veterans. You know, and as you'll see here, I'm struggling. You see balls up, another walk. You know, I'm just going to nibble my way and try to get out of this some way or another. I'm not going to give in. But I think Buck just really had faith in his veterans, and he's going to follow up Mariano Rivera with Jack McDowell when we still had Wickman and Wetland in the bullpen as well.
But think about what Buck Showalter's choices are in the bullpen. He's got Mariano Rivera. Yes, he's not the Rivera we know of today, but he had pitched very well in the series. John Wetland, his closer, who he got off of because he didn't get anybody out in the previous game. He also has Jack McDowell, Andy Pettit, Steve Howe, Sterling Hitchcock, and Bob Wickman. It's a veritable who's who of starters and closers in his bullpen. There are options, but evidently he thought you were still the best one approaching 130 pitches.
No, I appreciate that, and even to this day I talk to Buck, and you know, I say, you know, I really appreciate the faith you showed in me in that game, and I was proud of my high pitch counts. You know, I really, going back to my Mets days, even though now I look at it, I say I wish I would have been more efficient. Maybe I'd still be pitching, or I would have pitched longer. But you know, I was stubborn. I was a stubborn pitcher. I wasn't going to give in, and if I walked guys, I didn't care. If I threw wild pitches, I didn't care. My stat sheet was everything, a lot of everything across the board.
You know, you could strike people out in key situations. That's a pretty good thought for a pitcher.
So, Lou, now you're really using your bench. You go to A-Rod as a pinch runner. You use Diaz as a pinch hitter. He draws the walk to load the bases. Now Dan Wilson, right-handed hitting catcher, is due to hit, and you're going to go to your bench again for Doug Strange.
Well, Doug, it had some big at-bats for us down the stretch. And he's a good pinch hitter. Knows the strike zone, a little discipline. And if you give him a pretty good pitch to hit, he can crank you every once in a while.
Yeah, a little pop. Yeah, he did.
Yeah, I felt good about that move, and you know, it was maybe to try to force the other managers' move a little bit too. Sometimes we didn't know that Mariano was going to be as good as Mariano was, you know.
Well, we talk about pitch counts, and obviously it's not always just that game. It's how you got to that game. And, David, people in today's game would never believe this, but that year you went over 130 pitches 14 times. Now, what does that mean? You could take every pitcher in baseball in 2010 and 2009, and they wouldn't have 14 130-pitch games. So the odometer on David Cone right now is sky high. I want to know how you think you can get Strange out.
Well, the book on Strange was he was a dead red first pitch fastball hitter. You see, I jump ahead. That's actually a slider. So that, I'm feeling good right now. I jumped ahead. Strange is a dead red first pitch fastball hitter, but he made the adjustment from here on. I couldn't get him to chase any pitches from here on. Yeah, you can see all of a sudden after that first wild hack, he gets off of my off-speed pitches, and those second two pitches were actually better than the first one that he swung at. So, I'm just not going to give in. Here I am there, a high breaking ball, my arms dropping. I'm completely done. Look at my body language. I'm rubbing my shoulder. I'm trying to stretch my shoulder out. I'm thinking, eesh, I got to get a strike here. I have to get a strike, throw a fastball right down the middle, and he takes it. So now we're at 3-2, and I'm thinking whatever Mike Stanley puts down at this point, I'm going to go with. I didn't really have a pitch in my mind. If Mike Stanley calls a fastball, I'm going to throw a fastball. If he calls a splitter, I'm going to throw a splitter. He called the splitter. I went with it. I really tried to get on top of it, and it's down and in, ball 4 to Doug Strange. I know I'm done. I'm exhausted on the mound. I almost collapsed on the mound after that pitch. The physical and emotional pain I'm going through right now, I can't believe that I let my team down. Accountability was big for me. Accountability to your teammates. I had a lead late in the game. I'm the #1 starter. This game's supposed to be over. I don't care if I had to throw 190 pitches to get it done. That was my mentality, and I was crushed on this pitch. It still wakes me up at nights.
Really?
It's funny, Lou, maybe you can talk to this a little bit, but isn't it funny how you remember your tough losses more than your wins? I remember this game more than the perfect game.
No question. I've always remembered bad at-bats in key situations.
And I noticed one of the first guys to greet you coming off that mound was someone who was not on the active roster, but in uniform, Derek Jeter.
Yes.
That told me something about Derek Jeter.
Derek Jeter was the first one there. A young Jorge Posada was there, and a young Mariano Rivera obviously was just coming in the game. Pretty unique if you think about it, but those 3 guys were there and on the bench, along with Alex Rodriguez on the other side.
Well, now that you're out of the game, let's take a look at your line and the pitch total. Even though you didn't finish it off as you thought you would, the number of pitches you threw and what you did while you were in there, coming off another 130-plus pitch effort in Game 1. This is as gutsy a performance as you've ever turned in.
In retrospect, I see that now. At the time, I thought I blew it. I was completely devastated. I let New York down. I let my teammates down. The Yankees aren't going to want me back. I'm a free agent. I'm giving everything I had out there. And, and interestingly, Randy Johnson ends up coming into this game later, and both of us were throwing caution to the wind. The strike was about greedy millionaire ball players versus greedy billionaire owners. We would have thrown till our arms fell off on this game. We didn't care whether we were free agents. We wanted that game badly.
Maybe Buck let you down. Maybe Buck in that situation is like the guy in the fighter's corner who sends him back out for an extra round that he didn't deserve to take the pummeling.
Yeah, well, that's easy. It's hard to argue with that at this point, and maybe Buck would agree with that. But at the time, I was appreciative that he had that much confidence in me. That's the mentality I had. It was stubborn. It wasn't very smart to think that way, but as an athlete, you almost trick yourself into believing that you can do anything. You can get through this no matter what.
So now you're back even. What are you thinking?
Well, what I'm thinking now is let's get Randy Johnson into the ball game. Let's see if we can hold him for an inning there in the 9th and score a run and win a baseball game.
But you still had a chance to actually take the lead here in the bottom of the 8th. The bases are obviously still loaded after the walk to Strange. Mike Blowers comes to the plate, and at this point, Buck Showalter will call on his rookie reliever, Mariano Rivera, to get him out of the jam. What follows is a glimpse of things to come for the Yanks.
First pitch strike. 0-2 and ahead with the bases loaded. What a pitching job by Rivera. The 9th inning is coming up, ladies and gentlemen.
Game 5, tied now at 4 between the M's and the Yanks, moves to the top of the 9th. Tony Fernandez leads off for New York against Norm Charlton. So Lou's thinking about Johnson, but for the moment, you stick with Charlton, who's been in since the 7th.
A fly ball it deep into right center field, and Buhner on his horse goes way back, and this ball is off the wall. It'll be taken by Junior, and Junior will get it into second base. But the leadoff double by Tony Fernandez here in the 9th, and now the Yankees will be looking for the sacrifice.
So the switch hitter Fernandez, batting right-handed, doubles to the gap in right center. The go-ahead run is at second with nobody out, and Randy Velarde is the hitter.
And Randy's a pretty good hitter to right center field. We were expecting him to go that way with the ball.
This is a 3-2 pitch. First and second, nobody out. And now you're not just thinking about Johnson, you want him.
Well, You know, Randy, I knew didn't have all that much because he had pitched Game 3 a day removed, but it was time to bring the big guy into the ball game, and he does a heck of a job.
And they're going to go down and get the big guy, Randy Johnson, and listen to this ovation.
This is an all-time moment right here. This is when the saloon doors swing open and the gunslinger comes walking in, not running in. He is milking this moment, walking in. This place, Lou, went absolutely nuts.
Yeah, Randy was a hero there, and I'll tell you what, he pitched so many great games, and he excited the crowd, and you know, he had that animation about him, the big unit. I mean, guy 6'10", long hair. Stared at the hitters, was intimidating, and the fans loved him. And this was the right time for him, and we were hoping he'd give us a chance there in the bottom of the ninth, and he does a heck of a job, to his credit.
Well, he was virtually unbeatable this year.
Yeah.
He went 18-2. I think your team was 28-3 in games that he pitched. And again, this is the third time now he's pitching in 7 days. Every game is a must-win. It's win or go home for the Mariners 3 times in 7 days, and he's the winning pitcher in all 3 games.
And this is a very tough situation for Randy to come into the ball game. Runners on first and second, nobody outs.
Well, he's got
Yankees
Wade Boggs here, and you know, Lou, it's got to be a bunt situation, or maybe you're expecting one with the Johnson against Boggs matchup.
Yeah, and if the one thing too is that if Boggs hit him, I thought he'd go to left field with the ball. So at least we keep the ball in front of the runners, which is what we wanted.
And this was an interesting call. Boggs, obviously, he's got no sacrifice bunts during the season. Very few, I think 3 in the previous 7 years. Showalter did have some right-handers he could have sent up to put a bunt down. Obviously, Boggs not comfortable bunting right here.
No, I keep thinking of John Kruk in the All-Star game. And Boggs wants to turn around and bat right-handed right here, but this is he does not want this challenge to try to bunt, especially after that pitch up and in. Randy, you know, if I'm a pitcher and I know Randy's thinking about this, you see a guy square around, you go ahead and buzz him up and in. That's exactly what he did.
Here's the 0-2 pitch on the way to Boggs. Swing and a miss. He struck him out on the fastball. I swear that ball was 98 miles an hour.
Struck him
Really
out on
quick.
3 pitches, and even against lefties, Boggs didn't strike out that often. Now here's Bernie Williams, and he's going to pop up for the second out.
Yeah,
Joey
this
Cora
is a
will take
big
it.
out. This is a big out for Randy because Bernie was a really, really good. Well, he's a good hitter from both sides, but especially from the right side. I mean, he
More
could hit
power
the
from
ball.
the right,
more,
too.
Yeah, more power, good contact, just an excellent hitter.
So when you bring him in, you know you got left switch, which means right-left. So really, you're most concerned about Bernie maybe in this
Bernie's
sequence.
a guy that you're concerned about in that sequence. And O'Neill, if you make some good pitches on him here, it's a tough at bat for Paul because he bails just a little bit.
Popped him up. Foul territory. Woodger is there. Throws the mask away. He's got it.
Randy dropped down on him just a little bit. He got O'Neill to pop out, and the fans go crazy.
Chris Widger made the catch. He was in behind the plate because you had
Another
the pinch
good
hit for
young
Wilson.
catcher, yes.
All right, so you guys got a chance to win it right here, bottom of the ninth, against Rivera. Here's Vince Coleman. You know if he gets on, he can run.
We got the right guy leading off.
2 strikes on Vince Coleman. Jack McDowell in left center field. So the Mariners get the winning run aboard here in the 9th inning.
Now, here's a decision. Do you bunt him over or do you let him run?
And your decision was?
I don't remember.
Well, Cora's going to bunt.
But I would think with Cora coming up, we would bunt him over, yes.
And it was interesting to see. We saw McDowell warming up. Andy Pettit is next to him. So the Yankees have Rivera in the game, McDowell and Pettit in the bullpen.
And Cora's an excellent bunter. He could do this in his sleep and gets a good fastball right down the middle, and he moves him over to second. We got the winning run on second base.
On the other hand, you know they're going to walk Griffey now, which they do.
But we've got Edgar coming up, and to me, Edgar, in this type of situation, what other hitter would you want?
That is a nice luxury, Lou, to be able, you know, when you bunt, you're taking the bat out of Griffey's hands. But you can do that when you have Edgar behind him.
No question. Now, look, if we don't bunt, they're going to pitch to Junior, obviously. But if they get Junior out and Coleman steals the base, they're going to walk Edgar. So either or, you're going to lose one of your better hitters there. with the men in scoring position.
Trying to bear down with the count 2-2.
So now Blackjack McDowell facing Edgar and getting him.
Blackjack, one of my favorite teammates. What a gamer. I mean, he was hurting. I can tell you, he was trying to give himself a cortisone shot in his back before this game. And he's out there, and he's running on fumes, and did never complain. Either one of us, we wanted this game so badly.
20-year-old rookie Alex Rodriguez with a chance to be a hero right here.
The 0-1 pitch on the way to Alex, and it swung on, and a ground ball at the shortstop. Right there's Fernandez, a side flip to second, and we will go into extra innings for the second time in this 5-game series.
David, take me back to when you came out of this game, and now this game is in the balance. Where are you? What are you doing watching this unfold?
Well, I remember after I walked Doug Strange, ball 4 to Doug Strange, I made a beeline. As you said, Derek Jeter shook my hand. I went right to the clubhouse, and like a 12-year-old little leaguer, I buried my face in the towel and bawled my eyes out. I mean, that's how devastating how important that game was, how devastated I was, the accountability I felt to both New York and my teammates, and it was 12 years old in Little League and bawling and with my face buried in a towel.
What it really shows is what a competitor this young man was and what a great pitcher he was.
So you're in the clubhouse. Did you come back to the dugout at some point as the game went into extra innings?
I did. I went back to the dugout, and we'll see here. We actually take the lead here, and I'm thinking redemption. I'm going to get redemption here, you know. Wow. Well, we're still going to win this game after all that, and the roller coaster ride. You see the finish of this game. We're not even close to finishing this one off yet, but it is just remarkable.
You know, and looking at that 9th inning again, here I'm sitting here, 15, 16 years later. Coleman could run like heck. Joey Cora could really handle the bat. I mean, you could hit and run. You could let Coleman steal. You don't necessarily have to bunt.
Yeah, you could let Coleman steal and then have Cora bunt and have a guy at third with one out, in theory.
Yeah, so there, you know, it goes to show that when you replay these games, different thoughts come in your mind. And you say, well, why did I do this or why did I do that? And if I had to do it all over again, I probably would have put the game in motion with Coleman one way or another.
But when you wind up winning the game, the second guessing is just a pleasure. When you wind up losing the game, the second guessing is agony.
Yeah, you play that over in your mind a heck of a lot more times than when you win, that's for sure. You learn more from losing than you do from winning.
For the second time, this series is headed to extra innings. Up next, Randy Johnson has the Kingdome in a frenzy. We go to the 10th when MLB's 20 Greatest Games continues.
Randy Johnson pitching on guts, pitching on adrenaline, pitching on sheer guile against the New York Yankees in this one.
Rick Riz right about all of that. After Randy Johnson came on in relief to get all 3 outs in the top of the 9th, he's back out there for the 10th. He's set to face Ruben Sierra, Don Mattingly, and Gerald Williams. Back to the Mariners radio broadcast.
And Ruben Sierra will step in and lead it off in the 10th.
So the big unit on in relief for the 3rd time in his career.
You got to have respect for Randy Johnson here in the 2nd inning of work. He's a free agent at the end of the year. I mentioned before, this is on the heels of the baseball strike and the World Series cancellation the previous year. And I have the utmost respect for Randy Johnson in this effort.
The 1-2 pitch, fastball, strike 3 called. He got him looking.
You know, when we talk about saving baseball in Seattle, Lou, I think near the top of the list, if not at the top, is Randy Johnson. I mean, he literally gave his back to the Mariners because next year he broke down.
The windup and the 1-2 pitch. Strike 3 called.
No question. Look, Randy was a stalwart over there. Got him from Montreal a few years earlier, and I'll tell you what, he became a true #1 guy. And when Randy was at the top of his game, though, he was electric, and he was at the top of his game most of the time.
So pandemonium at the Kingdome and another chance, sudden death, at least in theory. Bottom of the 10th, McDowell on the mound. Buhner is at the plate.
Here's the windup and the 1-1 on the way. Swinging a line drive, base hit left center field. And Jay Buhner makes the turn at first and holds there.
Another great at-bat by Buhner. We don't talk about him a lot in this series, but he had other just solid key at-bats throughout the whole series.
So here's Chris Widger, and Showalter goes out to talk to McDowell. You're going to have Widger bunt, right?
Well, I should have him bunting. In fact, you know, the one thing when you manage, Widger's a young catcher. We didn't get all that many at bats. You've got to make sure that you can ask a guy to bunt that can bunt. We probably only carried 2 catchers in that series, so there was no way that I could pinch hit for him or have somebody bunt for him. So we gave Woodger that opportunity, and he didn't get it done. But look, it's tough. When a guy is not used to bunting, like Boggs was against Randy Johnson, it's tough to lay down a bunt at times.
So he bunts foul with 2 strikes. That takes care of him. Here's Doug Strange, who drew the bases-loaded walk to tie the game back in the 8th off Cone. Velarde will go to second. They get 1, not in time at first, and so the inning continues.
Tony Fernandez, well, he just flings that ball, doesn't he? It's amazing. You almost don't see it come out of his hand. He almost got him.
So here's Mike Blowers against McDowell.
Here's the stretch by McDowell and the pitch on the way. Fastball swinging, a ground ball toward the hole at short. Backhanded reach. Fernandez throw to second, not in time. Safe at second is Doug Strange. Tony Fernandez ranging way to his right to backhand the ball. He went to second to try to get the force on Strange, but Doug is safe at second base. Vince Coleman has been there before. Here's the stretch by McDowell, and the next pitch on the way. Swinging a ground ball wide at first over to Mattingly. He's got it. He'll go down to second for the force on Mike Blowers, and that will end the inning.
Well, you can see Showalter at this point is going to stay with the veterans. He stayed with me deep into the game. He's going to stay with Jack McDowell. He's going to ride out the game with Jack McDowell at this point.
And from our standpoint, we know that this is Randy's last inning. This is it. I mean, he said he had 1. He went 1+. We know that this is going to be his last inning out there.
Did you even check with him? You didn't want an answer from him. That would be something you didn't want to hear.
You know, I looked down the bench. I saw him sitting there. That was good enough for me.
So you're thinking he'll hold him in the 11th, and maybe we can score in the bottom half.
Score in the bottom half and try to win a baseball game, because if not, we're going to have to do. I've already used Charlton. I've already used Randy. So we're getting deeper and deeper in our bullpen, and our bullpen was quite young.
Okay, before we go to the 11th, we're going to take a break, and we'll pose this question. He has great career numbers against the big unit, and he will get to him in the 11th inning. Who are we talking about? You may be surprised. Find out next when MLB's 20 Greatest Games returns. So here we go, 4-4 through 10, Game 5, deciding game of the division series in 1995. Seattle and the Yankees. Randy Johnson comes out of the bullpen for Lou Piniella. He's retired all 6 batters he's faced so far. In the top of the 11th, Mike Stanley leads off for New York. And that's a 4-pitch walk.
Well, we're aware that Randy's pitching on fumes now. We know it. But at the same time, we've got to get through the 11th inning. As it is, and the bottom half of that inning, we got the middle part of our lineup coming out. So it's important that Randy gets us through this inning, that gives us a chance to win a baseball game.
Pat Kelly in to run for Stanley.
Well, there are a lot of moves from both managers. Lineup looked drastically different at the end of the ball game than when it started.
Fernandez lays down a very nice bunt, and now Kelly with the go-ahead run is at second base. The next guy is Randy Velarde, and look at that. Look at those career numbers against the big unit.
And a fairly large sample size, too. 39 at-bats.
Yep.
Randy was a good hitter. He could stay on that breaking ball. He could hit that fastball in and out.
Base hit. Kelly coming around. He's going to score on Coleman.
He's going to beat the throw, and the Yankees have the lead 5-4. Did you give any thought at all? Now, you're the home team. It's a different deal. Did you give any thought at all to walking Velarde?
It's tough. It's tough in that situation. Now, in the Kingdom, you don't want to put people on base unnecessarily if you don't have to, especially late in the ball game.
Leyritz bats for Boggs and strikes out looking, and now you're going to the mound.
And here comes Lou. He wants to make sure if the big guy is all right, if he has one more out in him, one more batter, and he does.
As it is now, we've got an open base to be able to walk Williams.
And here is O'Neill. And the 1-2 pitch to Paul O'Neill now. And the fastball, strike 3 call right over the inside corner.
And David, as hard as it has been to hold leads in this series, do you allow yourself a little bit of confidence that finally you're going to win this game?
Yeah, I'm back on the bench at this point. I've dried my eyes out from my crying session and crying game, and came on out to the bench, and I'm thinking redemption. I'm thinking, okay, we're okay here. I'm going to pitch again this year. I'm going to get another chance, another start in the next round. I'm completely confident we're going to get it done. I didn't know what the move would be. You know, Buck Showalter, turns out he's going to ride out with Jack McDowell. You know, I'm looking down at the bullpen, and you know, as I said, Buck Showalter was going with his veterans. I appreciate that. We've talked several times since then. You know, I've said I appreciate your confidence in me, and I'm not one to look back and second guess, but it's easy to do in this game.
Here's the situation. Yankees are 3 outs away from heading to their first league championship series since 1981. But the Mariners have Ken Griffey Jr. and Edgar Martinez due to bat in the inning. The conclusion of Game 5 is next.
So the fans with great hope, with great heart, with great noise, hoping that the Mariners can do something as they get set to come up to the plate.
So the Mariners have hope, heart, and noise, but the Yankees have a 5-4 lead as we go to the bottom of the 11th. Jack McDowell still in for New York. Joey Cora leads off for Seattle. Dave Niehaus at the mic.
Joey Cora is 1 for 4. He sacrificed in the ninth. And the wind and the 2-1 pitch to Joey Cora now. He bunts the ball up the first base line. It's a dandy, and he is going to be safe again.
Talk about a perfect drag bunt.
Joey, just a great head-first slide and evades a tag. But I'll tell you what, Joey did that quite a few times during the course of a year.
Dan Morrison is telling Buck Showalter, no, it's okay. He's a little bit out of the baseline, but not so far as to be called out.
Well, it's a great non-call by Morrison because you'll see Joey leave the running lane. That's perfectly acceptable as long as you're making an effort to touch the base, avoid the tag. It's exactly what he did. You mentioned it, Bob. Textbook perfect bunt. You could not have rolled that ball any better.
Any better, exactly right.
And for McDowell, a crusher. You know, if you're on the mound here, you're on the ropes right now because you know that something's going to happen, and who's coming up in the lineup at this point.
And you can't pitch around Griffey in any sense. You got a guy on first base. You got to come right at Junior.
You got the first base hole open. Everything's in your favor here.
And you've been winning games like this for 2 months, Lou. The whole refuse to lose mantra in Seattle.
No question. What a great slogan. Refuse to lose.
Let's listen to Dave Niehaus as Griffey faces McDowell.
The 1-0 pitch on the way to Junior now, and it swung on a ground ball, base hit into right center field. Cora's going to end up at third, and the Mariners have runners at first and third and nobody out here in the bottom half of the 11th. My, oh my.
First and third, nobody out. Edgar Martinez coming up. What are you thinking, David?
I'm thinking, tie game. I'm thinking ground ball, get a double. We're okay. They're going to tie it up. This game's going to go maybe 19 innings at this point, the way this series is going. All the pitchers are going to be exhausted, but I'm still confident, okay, we'll give up that run at third, but we're still tied. I didn't anticipate what comes next.
And I'm thinking, I know Edgar's going to put the ball in play. He doesn't strike out in these type of situations. He's a great contact hitter. I'm thinking, really, right center field. And lo and behold, we'll see what happens, but it's not the right center field.
All right, here it is. Runners at the corners. Edgar Martinez, who's just been tearing the Yankees up all series, is at the plate.
Now, I thought this was a nice move by McDowell and Showalter. Keep Griffey close at first base. That's the winning run. Don't take it for granted. Keep the double play in order, but don't let him get a good jump off the bag.
That's exactly right. I'm thinking the same thing on the bench. Ground ball, keep him close, sack fly, we're okay. But Edgar always scares you. This part of the lineup just wore us out the whole series.
Empty bullpen, so Showalter's going with McDowell.
Yes, that's it. Nobody was even warming up.
Yep.
That was the sign. I think Buck Showalter wanted to send that sign. I'm going with my veterans. He left me in there. Second guess or not, Jack McDowell's the guy he wants to go with. At this point in Buck Showalter's career, he's going to trust his veteran guys.
And here it is.
And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on and lined down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joey. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League Championship. I don't believe it.
Junior could score from first as well as any runner in the big leagues on a double, and that's exactly what he did, and all Bedlam broke loose there.
I've never seen anybody run like that. That was the fastest I ever saw anybody run the bases. For obvious reasons, it's a winning run, but Ken Griffey Jr., I know he'll say it too. He never ran the best bases better than that situation.
Absolutely. Not only speed, David, but the way he cut every base was absolutely an instructional video. Think about this. This is a ball hit to left field on turf with no outs. Very, very few runners are going to score, and he scores easily.
No question. And left field is not really deep in the Kingdom, and that ball comes back to that left fielder fairly quick off the wall. And Junior, like you said, I mean, look at his stride. Perfect.
Now, you had won a World Series as a manager in 1990 with Cincinnati. You swept an Oakland team that was heavily favored. You'd been on the great Yankee teams of the 70s. But there was something about this series and something about this moment that has to put it way up there for you personally.
Well, it was fun for me. Obviously, you know, I have a tremendous amount of respect, and I had a tremendous amount of respect for the Yankee organization. I wear their World Series ring very, very proudly and very humbly. But, you know, it's great beating the team that you played for. And the Yankees are the epitome of whom everybody seems to want to beat, whether it's Seattle or whomever. And it was a lot of fun. It really was. I'd managed a few years over there with the Yankees, and it was great beating the Yankees in that playoff series. But you know what? They got even with me because down the road...
they got you in 2000, and they got you in 2001 when you won
American
116 games in the regular season.
They got even. So.
That losing clubhouse, I don't have to tell you, David, it was devastating in that Yankees clubhouse. I remember Buck Showalter in his office crying, and George Steinbrenner standing right outside the doorway, arms folded, saying, there will be changes. We weren't sure if Don Mattingly was going to return, whether Buck Showalter was going to return, but the devastation that a moment was lost and maybe gone for good for a lot of guys, you could feel it in that room.
You could feel it. You could talk about a morbid flight home. 6 hours, back to New York, a red eye. That clubhouse was just dreadful, and you could feel it. You knew something was going to happen. Who knew how much change was going to happen? But the organization pivoted at that point and went in a completely different direction.
Showalter gone, Torre in. We forget that at the time, the back page of one of the New York tabloids said, "Clueless Joe." You know, Torre had come off an unsuccessful stretch in St. Louis. People wondered if he'd ever manage again, but that was the pivot point. There were other changes, but the most important, I mean, obviously guys like Jeter and Rivera and Posada were on the way out of the system. But Torre at the top, replacing Showalter, is key.
It is, and that's why this game, to me, is one of those key intersections in baseball history where you have a choice of where it goes, both for Seattle, maybe they wind up in Tampa, and for the Yankees. Does the dynasty happen under Showalter, or does it happen at all? All those questions in play.
And if they wind up in Tampa, there are no Tampa Bay Rays.
How about that? I wouldn't have managed there for 3 years.
Yeah, you wound up in Tampa one way or the other.
Right.
Well, David talked about how difficult it was in the Yankee clubhouse. Let's take a look at the Mariner clubhouse after the game as David comes in.
Boy, what a classy gesture. David coming into our clubhouse, you pitch your heart out. Pitched 2 great games in that series, and then you come in and congratulate our team. We really appreciated it.
Yeah,
I mean, we really respected you guys, and we enjoyed competing against you, and we were fortunate that we came out on top.
Well, David, obviously a class gesture. I want to forward it a little bit more. You get off the plane, you're home. Take me through how you're feeling in those weeks, days after this game. I'm assuming one of the most difficult losses, at least physically, and even beyond that.
Yeah, going back to the flight home after the game, the 6-hour red eye, I couldn't lift my arm on the plane. And then when I got home, I couldn't get off the couch for 2 weeks. And then
really?
the next spring I showed up and there was tingling in my fingers, and all of a sudden my fingernails turned blue, and I was diagnosed in May of the following year with an aneurysm in my axillary artery in my right shoulder. Now, was that the cause of it, that game? It was probably a lot of repetitive motion. It's a repetitive motion injury, so, you know, it's probably the culmination of a lot of things. But I just know I couldn't get off the couch for 2 weeks after that game. I couldn't lift my arm.
And obviously, you're thinking maybe your career is over, whereas, in fact, some of the greatest days of your career were still ahead.
Yeah, ironically, yes. Who knew, you know, and especially leading into spring training and then trying to pitch through pain and then finally having the aneurysm surgery, arterial bypass surgery. I thought I was done at that point. And, you know, what a lucky break. I mean, be able to be a part of that dynasty after I had an aneurysm. You've
already detailed how difficult it was. As you sit here now and we review some of it, can you appreciate what a great game you were part of?
Yes, I can. I'm proud of it. I'm proud of that effort. I really am. You know, even though at the time I couldn't see that. You know, I felt like I'd let the whole city down. You know, and I pitched that way. I pitched. You know, I used to have the Coneheads in the stands with the Mets back at Shea, and I'd look up there and I don't want to let them down. That was my motto. I don't want to let these people down. These fans are unbelievable. Plus, I don't want to get a Bronx cheer. I don't want to get booed either. So, but yeah, that was part of my feeling. And you're right, Bob. Now I see it, and it was a great game. Great game for baseball. Great game for Seattle. You know, it's a beautiful park they have out there, Safeco Field. So, you know. If you got to take one for the Gipper, I guess. I took one for the Gipper.
David, you did speak even directly after that game about how proud you were of ball players in general, how this game represented the game so well. again, on the heels of the strike and the ill will that was still there with a lot of fans.
Yeah, it's really still there. A lot of the players who were involved in the union, Tom Glavine, really got hammered when they came back after the strike. We all felt it. We all felt the brunt of it. And I think there was a responsibility we all felt for that in that series, that, you know what? We're not greedy, overpaid ball players. I'll lay my career on the line right here. I don't care if I'm a free agent. I don't care about my next month and my next contract. I want this game here and now.
So you guys then go on to the LCS. The Indians were a powerhouse. They beat you in 6. They might have won anyway. They were that good. But you had to charge from behind to catch the Angels, beat them in a tiebreaker game, win this crazy series down in games 0-2, comebacks in all the games in Seattle. Were you spent by the time you got to face the Indians?
I don't know if spent, but we got caught in a situation again where Randy couldn't pitch till game 3. We were only going to be able to pitch him twice. We had him for game 3 and game 7. So it made it a little more difficult for us. But Cleveland, like you said, they had just a great team. But this Yankee win was very exciting for us, and it gave us a chance to go to the World Series. And we just didn't quite get there, but we had a great season.
Well, the Mariners obviously still don't have a pennant, don't have a World Series appearance. Lou, in some ways, this game has been the pinnacle of the Mariners franchise. And I'm wondering for you whether this game ranks as one of your prouder moments because of what it meant and still does to the Seattle franchise.
When I went to Seattle, I guess in what, 93, I think it was, they had never had a winning season. And I think my first year there, we were 500, or maybe one game over 500. I don't remember. The second game, there was a strike, so it was an incomplete season. And then the third game, like you said, at the All-Star break, we were around a 500 team, and then we got hot and got ourselves into a postseason. But I'll tell you, yeah, it was probably one of my finest moments over there in Seattle, and I was so proud of our players.
That's the beauty of all this. These kinds of games that we're counting down, the top 20 of the last 50 seasons, you could talk about them forever. But now our time is done. Tom, David, Lou, our thanks to you. That's it for game number 15 on our countdown of MLB's 20 greatest of the last half century. As we say so long, we leave you one more time with the voice of the late, great Dave Niehaus.
And the 0-1 pitch on the way to Edgar Martinez. Swung on and lined down the left field line for a base hit. Here comes Joy. Here is Junior to third base. They're going to wave him in. The throw to the plate will be late. The Mariners are going to play for the American League